Welcome back, everybody. This is the thejonnymar, and I'm continuing with Final Fantasy I: Dawn of Souls, the PSP version. As you'll see on our map here, we are at the second of the bonus dungeons of the Dawn of Souls version of this game, and that is the Hellfire Chasm. So this dungeon becomes available once you beat Merilith in the second dungeon of the game. So we are going to head in here and we're going to take it on like we did with the first bonus dungeon, the Earth Gift Shrine. Now, like the first dungeon we took on last time, basically this dungeon is fairly similar in the sense that the layout of the dungeon is actually randomly determined. Now, there are a couple of different floor types that you can get for each of the different floors that you go to. And for example, in this area, you actually can use a ship, a canoe, or in one of the map layouts, you have to actually find an airship in order to progress. Now, luckily, we got the easy one where we can get right to the exit. Now, a lot of the rooms are going to be, of course, as you might expect from the name of this bonus dungeon, they're going to be fire levels, kind of like the volcano we went into earlier in the game. So when you go into these different floors, as you're traveling on the lava, what will happen is you will actually take damage. But the trade-off there is, as you take damage, you don't have to actually take on random encounters, which to me is a good trade-off. I would rather take a little bit of damage from the lava than have to do a ton of random encounters. But do not worry, you will of course have to do a lot of fights in this dungeon. Now, unlike the original dungeon that we took on last time, the Earth Gift Shrine, there's actually 10 floors to this one. And you don't have to go through 4 times. You can actually go through just twice. And that is because the 4 bosses, there's one on level 5 that you can fight, although there are 2 in total on level 5. After you fight one of them, you are going to have to continue onward or leave the dungeon and come back in. And then there is another 2 on level 10. And then you can fight one of those each time through. So you can theoretically get through this dungeon in 2 tries. Now on these floors, you'll notice that some of these blocks are actually sparkling, and if you step on those, you will get into a random encounter. Now what's annoying about this level is you have to wait for these stupid people to get out of the way to get around them. And you will occasionally have to step on some of the sparkles and get into a random encounter. It is just not avoidable. So we will do that, of course, and continue onward. Now I'm actually going to go through this dungeon 3 times, and that is because I want to fight the bosses of this dungeon in a very particular order. Now, that'll make more sense when you actually see them, and I will talk about that in more depth when we actually get to the first boss. But we are almost there. This is floor 4, so once we get by these 2 idiots, we will continue onward to floor 5 and fight our first boss. So here we are on floor 5. Let us maneuver to the east, not the east, the west, and also to the north a little bit. And we will take on the first boss of this dungeon. And now this is going to be a wonderful experience because it is an homage to another game in the Final Fantasy series. One of the games that I really like in the series. In fact, it's my second favorite game in the series. At least when it comes to the main storyline series, the numbered series. I do consider Final Fantasy Tactics to be my favorite Final Fantasy game, but that's not part of the numbered series. Oh man, here we go. We're gonna take on the first of the Elemental Fiends from Final Fantasy IV. Now, as I mentioned, I'm gonna be fighting these guys in order, so the order that you actually fight them in Final Fantasy IV. So we'll start, of course, with our first Elemental Fiend, the Fiend of the Earth, using our usual tactics. And like Final Fantasy IV, this fight is actually a multi-part fight. So we have to take him out first, and then we will have to actually take on a demon version of him. But at least we won't be attacked from behind, like we are in Final Fantasy IV. Now, Scarmiglione is actually not too difficult. He's actually the weakest of all of the Elemental Fiends, not only in Final Fantasy IV, but in this game as well. He only has around 7,000-ish hit points, and it's only 4,000 in this form. And then in his second form, he'll have about 7,000. Now, each of the fiends does get progressively more difficult, but none of them are that difficult. They're really just going to take some time. Figured I'd show off Holy. I don't think I've actually used that spell yet in any of my episodes. Pretty awesome effect. Not that it did much damage, but it was enough to take him out. Adios, Scarmiglione. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, we're quaking in our boots. Of course, this is the demon form. So we're gonna use, of course, our same strategy. We're gonna boost our physical attackers and then try to keep everyone in tip-top shape. Now, after I beat this guy, we will, of course, get an item. He doesn't give us anything special. I think he gives us like a light curtain or something like that, which will protect you from a special attack. But then you get a choice. So we'll step on the teleporter, because of course the room will get locked. And then what will happen is we'll get teleported to a room that has another teleporter and stairs going down farther into the dungeon. Now, like I said, you can continue in the dungeon and take out another of the bosses during one single run. But I'm actually going to leave the dungeon and redo the first 5 floors so that I can take on the second of the bosses. Because it is the second boss that you face in Final Fantasy IV. You don't have to do that, viewers. Of course, you can continue onward and only do 2 runs through this dungeon, but I do want to do it in order. So down he goes, not too tough. He wasn't that bad in Final Fantasy IV either. A game I am quite looking forward to doing. Alright, so let's head back through and get to the second one. Okay, I've made it back to Basement 5, and we are gonna head down to the south to take on the second Elemental Fiend. Of course, I will get lost a little bit, but let's head up here. And of course, many of you who have played that game will know who the second one is. It was quite a shock in Final Fantasy IV when it turned out that you had to fight this boss. I'm not gonna spoil too much about it, because I do plan on, of course, doing Final Fantasy IV eventually. And it is my second favorite game in the series, so I'm quite looking forward to that. But here we go. Cagnazzo. Now you'll notice that the music is actually a variant on the Final Fantasy IV battle music as well, which is pretty awesome. Now Cagnazzo is similar to the way he is in Final Fantasy IV, in that he does have a pretty strong water attack called Tsunami. However, he does not do his little water shield ability, which is really irrelevant in Final Fantasy IV. It never really did anything for him, at least in any of the times I've played the game. But he is weak to thunder. However, since I don't have a black mage, and my red mage is really more of a physical attacker, we're just going to continue with our physical attacks that are pumped up. In fact, I'm not even sure he's going to get a Tsunami off. He might. Now he's got also around 7,000 hit points. So he'll last a few rounds, but probably not too many. And once we beat him, we will head down deeper into the dungeon, and we'll do the last 5 floors. I'll take on the third Elemental Fiend, and then I'll have to exit and go all the way back through the dungeon, all 10 floors. See if Holy does any damage. Wow. How about Thundaga? You're weak to thunder. Nope. Alright, let's just attack then. There we go. 2 Elemental Fiends down, 2 to go. Fiend of Earth and Fiend of Water defeated. So of course the last 2 elements are wind and also fire. So we are locked in. Let's head to the teleporter, and instead of exiting to the world map, which we can do by heading on that teleporter, we're going to take the stairs down to floor 6. And we'll do some more random floors. A lot more lava. But maybe we'll see some more floors with perhaps the airship or, you know, those sparkly tiles that we'll have to avoid. There's actually one floor too where you are constantly harmed. It's kind of a inferno floor. Somewhat similar in style to the water temple we went to earlier in the game. And we took on Kraken. Ah, and here we are. Now as long as you're on those white tiles, you will not take damage. But if you're on the red tiles, or red parts of the... Come on, Stu it back, get out of the way. You will take constant damage. Now it's actually less damaging because it's only 1 damage for about every 2 seconds that you're on them, as opposed to 1 damage for every tile you step over. So it's actually better than the lava floors. But we are through. Now this floor is nice because it's another one of the sparkly tile floors, but there are not a lot of them, so it's pretty easy to get through. Now, like the Earth Gift Shrine, there are treasure chests sprinkled around these floors, and the contents of these chests will change, and the locations of them will change as well. So be aware of that as you're heading through the dungeon. Now this is a pretty easy one for our location. We just have to head down and to the west, and we will head to basement level 10. So now it's time to take on our 3rd elemental fiend. And to take her on, because it is a female, we have to head over to the east of the room. So let's head down and to the east, and we'll take on elemental fiend number 3, who is the Fiend of Wind. But of course, we'll save very quickly. Not save, we'll heal. As you're doing this, you can, of course, exit to the world map and use tents and cottages. Yeah, our enemies are always underestimating us. So this is Barbariccia. She is the elemental fiend of wind. Again, similar in design to Final Fantasy IV, although she does not do her whirlwind attack. So we don't have to worry about that. We don't need a dragoon to knock her out of it. So same strategy as before. She's not too tough. After all, you really shouldn't bring a bikini to a fight. We're gonna pump our physical attackers and beat her down. And then once she is finished, as I mentioned, well, she's whipping out her super strong attack here, Cyclone. Pretty cool looking. Should do a couple 100 points of damage, actually. Yeah, it's pretty tough. If she uses that next turn, I might lose Nakuso and myself. Let's see what happens. Hopefully I can cure here. Let's use Karaga, just to keep myself alive, because I am very important, of course. And then we will use a full healing spell. But once I beat her, of course we will exit, and then we'll come back down to take on the final elemental fiend, and the most difficult. And my favorite elemental fiend. I've always been kind of a chivalrous kind of guy, and so the last fiend, in Final Fantasy IV anyway, is very chivalrous. So that's always spoken to me as a kid, for example. She shouldn't last much longer. Maybe one more round. Now this dungeon does take roughly the same amount of time as the first one, so as you're going down, plan for about an hour to do your 2 runs. Or I guess however many runs you want to do. Like I said, you can do it in 2. See you later. She's gonna give us the Braveheart, which is a sword, of course. So if you do this dungeon immediately after beating the volcano, the Braveheart is actually a pretty good sword to get. But at this point, it is not very powerful, so we are not gonna use it. But that will change for the final fiend we're gonna take on. We're gonna get a weapon from him as well, and that weapon is actually worthwhile. So So we are back on basement level 10, and we're gonna take on the final elemental fiend. And I think we need to just head to the west here. Yep, and then we need to head south, I believe. Well, eventually. I don't want to get super lost here, because there are random encounters. Alright, so here's our last one. Let's heal quickly, because he can do quite a bit of damage, relatively, compared to the other fiends. And it is Rubicante, or Rubicante, or however you want to pronounce it. Obviously, people may pronounce the names differently. You know, we always have, as I've mentioned in other LPs, kind of our ingrained pronunciations that we've used while playing these games, since they don't have spoken dialogue. So I always call them Rubicante. But strategy is essentially the same. Nothing's changing. Boost our attackers and then attack. I might try some Blizzard magic. He is weak to ice. To use this Scorch ability. Not too tough. But probably will just physically attack. Now again, unlike Final Fantasy IV, he does not use his special ability. So he won't throw up his cape, which he can use to protect himself from ice magic in Final Fantasy IV. And he also did not restore us to full health and MP, which is a little bit different. So again, it's just an homage. It's not exactly like Final Fantasy IV. It is pretty cool to see some of these bosses again. Although, if you think about it, it's also weird, because these are bosses from later games in the series in the first game of the series. So if you're playing the games in order, then obviously you have no idea who these bosses are, and it's kind of spoiling it a little bit to take them on. But this game is more designed, I think, for fans, especially the bonus content. Wow. Okay, that did a lot more damage than I expected. That's why I throw Protera up. Knock their physical damage down by half, so they're not doing 300 to 400, they're only doing 1 to 2. Okay, let's heal everybody. Yeah, you can use a Fira. That's fine. That won't do anything. Thank you for not using Faraga or Scorch on us. He's pretty creepy looking, though. Gotta love that cape. And whatever he has on his head, I'm not exactly sure. It's a cap or a crown or what's going on with that. Maybe his hair. But down he goes. And that is the 4 elemental fiends of the Hellfire Chasm. And we get a big long weapon name and also a ribbon. Awesome. So now all 4 of my party members can have ribbons on, which is pretty cool. And that sword is actually worthwhile. We'll throw that on my namesake, because it should be a little bit more powerful than the Sunblade. Yes, there we go. And then next time, we're actually going to skip the 3rd bonus dungeon and go to the 4th, because I consider the 3rd one to be the toughest. So I will go over there, and I'll meet you all in my next episode. Thanks for watching. See y'all next time. So long.